forth. Now, theoretically, the arising passing way of formations can be seen with regard to all phenomena arising in the body or in the mind. No? All phenomena of the five aggregates. And this is the way it is usually described in the text. So, when later on, if you want to perfect your practice, it is a good idea to do these so-called jnana adhitthana, so the determinations for one specific insight knowledge, and then to get it really, really clear, or to gain a clear-cut understanding of what this insight knowledge is all about. And to see it over and over and over and over again with regard to all phenomena arising at the six sense doors, or all phenomena of the five aggregates. That's important. And one can then the practice becomes more willful. And so, if, for instance, one hasn't seen the quick arising passing of formations with regard to a certain sense door, let's say sounds or so, then intentionally one may direct one's mind towards sounds and listen to the sounds very carefully in order to see it there or hear it there. And so on and so forth. And if you haven't seen the quick arising passing way of formations in the walking meditation, well, then intentionally you do the walking meditation until you see it there very clearly. And thus the knowledge comes really to maturity, and the meditator then fully understands what this knowledge is all about. And then there's no more doubts. And then later on, when your practice goes further, when you progress further, then it's easy, and your practice sometimes falls back down. Then it's easy to recognize. Immediately, oh, this is really a good friend, old friend. Like this. So, in your meditation practice, do you see there's lots of scope there? There's scope for development, plenty of development. So, anyway, where are we now? Now that the meditator has passed the dangers posed by the imperfections of insight, the meditator proceeds with greater determination in his or her work of contemplation. And all the three universal characteristics of anicca, dukkha, and anatta now become clear to him or her in a reasoned manner. Though these characteristics appeared to the meditator already in the early phase of the knowledge of arising and passing way, where they were not so clear then, because at that time, because of the adverse influence of the imperfections of insight. But with the imperfections of insight gone, the three characteristics stand out in bold relief. Since the high road of insight knowledge begins with the knowledge of arising passing way, the meditator should be especially well acquainted with this particular knowledge. He or she requires a thorough understanding of the three characteristics: impermanence, suffering, and not-certain self, each of which has two aspects. Namely, number one, that which is impermanent and the characteristic of impermanence. Number two, that which is suffering and the characteristic of suffering. And number three, that which is not self and the characteristic of not self. Now, the prize question is, what is meant by that which is impermanent? Yes, very good. 100 points for you. So the expression that which is impermanent indeed refers to the five aggregates. And the characteristic of impermanence, anicca lakkhana in the Pali language, is the mode of arising and passing away. So please write this down. The mode of arising and passing away. So that's its characteristic. And then, what do you think? What is the characteristic of dukkha, of certain suffering? Who knows? It's not quite it. Pardon me? Is that what arises and passes away is? Why is it unsatisfactory? Yes, okay. Well, you're getting there. It's because the mode, its characteristic, the characteristic of suffering is the mode of being continually oppressed, and the reason here is, like you said, because of change. No? We want phenomena to last so that we can look at them properly, and they don't do us this favor. They keep changing all the time. Yes?
The mode of arising, I think the lakkhana of anicca is the mode of arising and passing away. I don't understand.
Oh, that's... No. It's... these three characteristics, they can be defined. No? And so... they can be defined or have to be defined. And that's... so the characteristic of anicca itself is this arising and passing of information. The characteristic of dukkha is this being continually oppressed by change. No? Just listen and you'll get it. And the characteristic of not-self is the mode of insusceptibility to the exercise of power. And this will be further explained. The five aggregates are thus impermanent because they arise and pass away. They're suffering because they are continually oppressed. And they're not self because there is no exercising power over them. So there's no self or soul that controls these phenomena. And the Patisamita Magga, so the path of discrimination, says or explains the three characteristics thus. It is impermanent in the sense of wearing away. Now, wearing away is fading away, not lasting. And it is suffering in the sense of bringing terror, and it is not self in the sense of corelessness. Now, the explanation here is slightly different from the previous one, from the Visuddhimagga. Now, all the three characteristics are to be found in the five aggregates. So this means there is not a single phenomena in the body or in the mind that is exempt from the three characteristics. There's only one thing that does not go well with the three characteristics, and Nibbana, yes, indeed. And why is this? What are the characteristics of Nibbana? Yes? No, it's sukha. It's permanent, it's nittya, and nittya because it's a state that is there at all times. It's just the way the mind has to be tuned into it. And it's sukha, it's conducive to happiness, and it's anatta. Wait a minute, anatta isn't atta? It's definitely not atta. No, it is anatta indeed. It is anatta. Anatta means non-self. And therefore the Buddha says, Sabbe Sankhara, the Buddha says, Sabbe Sankhara Anicca-ti. All formations are anicca. And please listen, Sankhara means formations, all formations, conditioned formations. So, rising, falling, heat, and expanse, and so on. And then, Sabbe Sankhara Dukkha, so all formations are dukkha, suffering. And then he goes on to say, all formations, Sabbe Dhamma Anatta-ti. All Dhammas are anatta. And here there's a change in expression. Previously it was Sankhara, now it's Dhamma. And included in the Dhammas is Nibbana, exactly. So that's also an important point. Now, all these three characteristics are to be found in the five aggregates. The aim of the insight meditator should be to arouse within himself or herself an understanding of these three characteristics. In fact, as one goes on through the insight knowledges, these three characteristics keep appearing all the time. All the way up to Sankopeka Jnana, the knowledge of equanimity towards formations, and even when a meditator is just about to attain path consciousness, the three characteristics, one of the three characteristics will be there. And then it's known as the gateway to liberation, and it could be either anicca, or it could be dukkha, or it could be anatta. Anyway, now the kind of effort might appear at first sight as a mental torture. So the kind of effort to apply to see the three characteristics with regard to formations. And but when one considers the solace which this vision yields, one will realize that in all the three worlds there is no worthier aim than this. And as the Buddha says, Sunyagaram pavitasa santajitasa bhikkhuno amanusi rati hoti samadhamam vipassato. It's Dhammapada verse 373, and it translates as follows: the bhikkhu or meditator who goes into seclusion to meditate, whose mind is tranquil, who clearly perceives the Dhamma, experiences the joy which transcends that of ordinary men or human beings. And what is meant here by samadhammam vipassato, who clearly perceives the Dhamma, by this is, or this refers to the arising and passing of formations. And so, who sees this arising and passing of formations? This meditator, or such a meditator, experiences a joy that is quite different from worldly pleasures. And this is usually referred to as yes, indeed, Dhammarati. Another 100 points for you too. Dhammarati, meaning Dhamma delight. And the three mental factors, namely joy and rapture, piti, tranquility, passaddhi, and sukha, happiness, these three together are known as Dhammarati. And an ordinary, a non-meditator, will he or she be able to experience this Dhammarati without meditating? No. Yes, indeed. And
Dhammarati in the Vipassana is the same as in Samatha stage when one reaches the third jhana. Is this sukha the same sukha as in Vipassana?
Well, it's somewhat, it's different and yet somewhat similar. In Vipassana, there may be pains and aches may be accompanied by it, no? And or in observation, joy and rapture, tranquility and the happiness arises while one is observing the physical or mental phenomena. Whereas in the samatha practice, in first, second or third jhana, this arises because one does one's metta sentences or one contemplates on one's samatha object. And so and then these mental states are much more predominant, and so there's slight there are differences, slight differences there. Although because of the similarity between the jhanic experience and the vipassana experience, in Vipassana it's known as Vipassana jhana. So you decide for yourself whether it's different or not. The characteristic of impermanence is concealed by what? Delusion, yes. And then further? Permanence. Yes, you're getting closer there. And permanence, and an aspect of permanence is what? Yes, very good. Right. Continuity. Now, I'll give you an example. Here. The flashlight is useful. Let's say this arising movement here. Now, at first, a meditator may see it as one movement like this. So, when we see like this, then we say it's a what kind of movement? Continuous movement. So beginning meditators, when they observe the rise and fall, or when they report on the rise and fall, they will always say it's continuous. Upon close observation and progress in the practice, the rising and falling is not seen like this anymore, but it may be seen like this. Right? So this we no longer call continuity of movement, but rather discontinuity of movement. And therefore, the characteristic of impermanence is concealed by continuity. And so, what appears to be a continuous movement gives the impression of permanence. But upon close observation, it's not seen like, or things are seen properly. And the characteristic of suffering is covered up by what? Not quite. It's maybe, yes, very change of what? Yes, a change of posture. There you go. That's it. 100 points for you. So, the characteristic of suffering is covered up by the change of posture. See, it's very simple. By change of posture, what? A new meditator. What will a new meditator do when pains and aches arise? Huh? Do you remember your? You sat for 8 minutes at a stretch and then you changed your posture. But now you're not doing like this anymore. So, by changing one's posture, every so often, do we see suffering or not? We don't see it, no? But if we and again, if we do not change the posture, and therefore the instruction, please try to sit still and not change your posture so quickly. By not changing the posture, the suffering is seen as suffering. The suffering that is inherent in the body, especially the physical suffering, is certainly clearly seen. And as for the mental suffering, it's the same thing. Let's say a mental and negative, a difficult emotion arises, and beginning meditators, what do? They get up and and distract themselves. And just yesterday we had somebody who thought that frying peanuts in the afternoon is more important than attaining nibbana. So, this is sorry. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's just to blend in the latest news at the center, the latest development at the center. So. Without jokes, life will be just too terrible. So, anyway, the characteristic of suffering is covered up by the change of posture, so physically as well as mentally. No? And the characteristic of non-self or not-self is overcast by, and who knows, like, this one is difficult. Exercise of power, yeah. Well, it's all just that's what your answers are corrected from the Patisambhida point of view, Patisambhida Magga point of view. The answer is the characteristic of not self is overcast with compactness. And the explanation will follow. The process of formations needs to be analyzed. Once it is seen as a heap or series, so as a heap or series or as a discontinuous movement, impermanence is understood. I'll give you an explanation for this. A pain arises. No? A pain arises in a beginning meditator, and such a beginning meditator for sure will say, this is just it's just pain. No? It's just pain, that's all. He or she will not be able to describe it any further than this. And the meditator will not be able to see its changes there, growing into, or intensifying, de-intensifying, moving around, and so on and so forth, coming, going, and so on. But then, as our meditator progresses in his or her insight knowledge, then let's say similar pain arises, and the pain then is seen as consisting of smaller pains. So one big pain consisting of pain points of hardness or whatever, and these points then maybe come and go or move around or so. So what seemed like so solid and permanent at first, upon very close observation, is seen not to be permanent at all, but impermanent. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, when something is, once an object is seen as a heap or a series or as a discontinuous movement, impermanence is understood. By resisting the impulse to change one's posture, suffering is understood. And let me add, by resisting the impulse to distract oneself with frying peanuts in the afternoon, suffering is understood. And by analyzing the mass of formations into its constituents, namely in terms of physical formations analyzing them into the earth element, the water element, the fire element, the air element, and then the mental formations into the mental state of contact, mental state of feeling, of mindfulness, of concentration, of wisdom, and so on and so forth, the characteristic of not-self becomes evident. And I'll give you a further explanation. When we take this sort of emergency light and we look at it like this, we say, well, this is an emergency light. But then, when we go by and take it apart, take off here this plastic cover, and then we take off the battery, and then we break off this part here, we tear off the cord here, then, and we look at the individual parts, where's the emergency light? You look at the cord, and so is the cord and the emergency light the same thing? No more. They're separate. And in the same way, by tearing up this so-called being, this so-called person, which bears a certain name like Nanda or Kendra or Garrett or whatever, but carefully dissecting it into its physical phenomena, physical parts and mental parts, where's the self? There is no self. Yes. So that is what Buddhism, or this is what we do in meditation. We take a very close look at what actually is there, and then by doing so, we see there is no self. And this is what is meant here. That by analyzing or dissecting the so-called being into its constituents of the primary elements of earth, water, fire, and air element, and then the mental factors. In this way, the characteristic of not-self becomes evident. Previously, we thought there's a self, and then when we take it apart, we see there is no self. And when these three characteristics become clear to the meditator, he or she is in a position to carry on the meditation well. Now, since it's already 10 to 7 o'clock, let's stop at this point until there's still quite a lot left which we'll deal with in the next, in the forthcoming Dhamma talk on Friday. And let me conclude by wishing, may all of you gain, those of you who haven't experienced Uddiyavaya Jnana yet, may you achieve it or experience it soon. And those who have already experienced it to some extent, may you be able to understand it fully, experience it fully, and thus may become a good foundation for your further practice, and then lead you to the final experience of the peace of Nibbana. And this is it for today. Now, time for questions. Yes, yours? Oh my goodness. Yes. About what? Oh, Upakimeta, yeah. Usually, yes.
But what about simple stillness of mind? If the yogi is one can attach to the stillness.
No, that's in Sankopeka. If it's true, if Sankopeka is fully developed, then there will be even equanimity towards that certain tranquility. And at that point, one just has to notice of whatever comes along. You know, if there's still attachment, then it shows that the knowledge is hasn't quite matured yet. No. Yeah. And maybe to add one more thing. Now these imperfections of insight occur during the tender stage, and that's where a meditator tends to be or relishes them. And it's during the matured phase that one has that one is no longer under their sway, and so let's say if calmness arises, then one just simply notes it, ignores it, and looks at something else. So it's a different situation. Kendra, your turn.
What's the term you use? The non-self is concealed by?
Concealed by, what did we say? Compactness. Yeah, right. Compactness. No, seeing the human being as a totality. No, and not carefully looking at the details. No, not dissecting it, not analyzing it. See, the Buddha has tried to prove the absence of the so-called soul or self or ego or individuality or whatever, and at his time until up to the present day, most people have very, 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 very strong belief in itself, And so you ask somebody whether the self exists, and you ask a non-meditator, the person will say, "What kind of a question is this?" Of course, the self exists. That would be the standard answer. And since this wrong view of the existence of the self is so deep-rooted in each and every one of us, we've accumulated this over our years during human life, and that this deep-rooted attachment to this wrong view, this has to be broken, And the best way to do this is through the meditation practice, and by taking a very close look at what's actually there.
Do you reconcile volition with self?
Pardon me?
How do you reconcile volition?
Volition is another mental factor. And what human beings usually take to be the ego, the ego that decides to do things, intends to do certain things. Upon close observation, it turns out to be just another mental state. And in your meditation practice, you've come across it. You sit in meditation for an hour, pain snakes arise, and sooner or later, the mental intention will arise. Okay, now it's enough of this, and it's time to go for a walk. And at that point, yes, indeed, you have a choice either to act on this intention or not to act on it. If you just label it as intending to get up, or you label it several times, so the intention itself is also anicca, and it will pass, and you may continue with your sit.
Well, how can common arise to two different things?
Yes, that's where our how do you say? That's the difference lies between how do you say fatalism and choice, and it is at this very point where we as human beings decide whether we're taking a wholesome course of action or an unwholesome one. And people who do not meditate, they just give in to their intentions. Whatever comes up in their mind, they act on it impulsively. And if it happens to be some unwholesome thought or an unwholesome intention, then they go that way. And then they can create acts of, or perform acts of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and taking intoxicating substances. So the actions follow. There will be actions, and so the actions will have certain negative results. And so that's why this relation is so crucial in the meditation practice, or it's so crucial for human beings, because it decides our future and our destiny. So there's a very strong ethical aspect there. Whether we decide to take a moral course of action or an immoral course of action, wholesome or unwholesome. And in the end, it's all up to us. If we choose to come to a meditation retreat, if we choose to take a close look at the mind, or if we choose to understand all these things or investigate these things properly, then we come into a position where we can avoid unwholesome intentions, or not follow up on unwholesome, not giving to unwholesome intentions. Somebody who says, well, what's the nonsense, or why go for a meditation retreat? This is just a waste of time. I think there's so many more important things to do, earning money and so on. And so they never understand. And that's it. So, and they are upbringing and our friends and books that we've read and all of these things, they all, those are all contributing factors. And somebody who's meditated, somebody who understands the difference between wholesome and unwholesome, in the light of this understanding, will make the right choice. And somebody who doesn't have this understanding will make the wrong choice. Which tradition?
Any of the traditions that tend to be more fatalistic, they also tend to lack
ethics. Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah, right. So why bother? And see, that's where Buddhism is so strong, because it says you are responsible for your own destiny, for your own happiness and well-being. Work it out, or you're responsible for your own salvation. Work it out yourself. So that gives a human being a tremendous opportunity. And
I have to say in this context, there is always this not contradiction, but this going together of your responsibility for even, let's take the practice, that's a good example. Even the imperfections, you're responsible. If you're detached, they will go away. If you're managed to do this, that, put enough effort, you will make a progress. And then there is the conception or the thought, I don't know what it is, that there is anyway something that is determined for you, like your pyramid or your kamar. There is nothing you can do. You just need to observe the objects that are coming. But there is a
No. Oh, you're wrong. The very development, the meditation practice itself is a way of developing the paramis and changing your karma.
One person will progress very quickly, very easily.
Another
person will take him very long. There is nothing there's nothing you can do about it. It's not how much effort he puts in, or how much he puts as much effort as the other person does.
But that's so that's then called that's dependent on past karma. Some people have performed a lot of wholesome deeds in the past existence, so they reach the good results.
How does this contradiction go together? I mean, the idea that you are responsible and that you have to make this.
And yes, you're responsible, and yet karma. It's one influence. It's not the whole thing.
What is the karma influence?
The karmic influence. That's one thing. But it's not everything. Even, let's say for a meditator who's a little bit slow in the practice, this being slow may be because of some past negative deeds. Okay, but this can be changed. And so if one keeps working at the practice and is very patient and persistent and then does one retreat after the other, one can get very, very far. And then for the next existence, or even for this very existence, and see, even if one turns out to be a slow meditator at the beginning, but if one is really serious about the practice, one can eventually, in the course of time, become a very, very skillful meditator. There's no reason why a slow meditator can't grow into a skilled meditator. And then surpass all those who are quit but then giving up the practice ourselves. Is that acceptable as an or does that make sense? Yeah? Anything else?
My notes are complete. I was just wondering if I could ask you to repeat something. You gave some definitions of initiation, Vivekananda from the Sayādaw. And then you gave them from another.
Patisambhidamagga. From the Patisambhidamagga. What was it? I have to check. I don't know this by heart. Here. The wisdom in contemplating the change. Is this the one? The wisdom in contemplating the change of present phenomena is the knowledge of contemplation of arising, passing away. This Patisambhidamagga chapter 1. 1:1.
Previously you gave the definition from the Sayādaw?
You mean the lakhana? Wait a minute. Very simple. The characteristic of impermanence is the arising, passing away. The characteristic of suffering, of dukkha, is the continued oppression. You mean that which is impermanent as a characteristic? Huh? No? Yes or no?
But that's from the Sayādaw, right?
That's from... wait a minute. Yeah, I guess so. I'm not quite sure about this one here. And then after that, then this one here. It is impermanent in the sense of wearing away. This is what you want. And then it is suffering in the sense of bringing terror. And yes, it is suffering in the sense of bringing terror. And then the third aspect, it is not self in the sense of corelessness. No, this is corelessness, lacking a core, lacking something solid in the middle. No, this whole reference is Patisambhidamagga, chapter 153, paragraph 53. That's the three things. For anicca is seeing phenomena as a series or a heap or as a discontinuity of movement. Yeah, right. So with that, impermanence goes and impermanence comes.
Then the truth is
Yeah, right. And for anatta, the anatta part is analyzing or dissecting the phenomena, or dissecting a human being into the constituent phenomena, such as the four primary elements and the mental factors and consciousness and so on. The delusion of self is overcome. Voila. Maybe this much for tonight. I still have to do some patimokkha this afternoon.